Okay, we'll begin the meeting, October 12th, 6:32 p.m. Roll call is members present. Michael is present, Tracy, Anton, myself, Patrick, Mike, and do we have Kim?
Yep, she's there. Yep.
And Chris Hood also, okay.
All right.
Thank you for everybody. Absent is Jay. Jay's absent this evening, he's out of town. Open forum. Do we have anybody who wants to speak during the open forum?
No.
If you're not, other than what's on the agenda. Okay. This chair is kind of goofy. Okay. Approve consent agenda. Minutes from the last meeting and payment of bills. Does anybody have anything they want to pull for discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving down to item E, Sheriff's request for letter of support. So, does Pat want to talk? Do you want to talk about this, or do we want to just introduce it as
If you want,
what,
I'm with.
of what it's all about?
Yeah. Yeah, you want us to come up here?
Yeah, if you want,
Yeah,
that'd be
please.
great. Let everybody know kind of what's,
So this is regarding the Coast Guard's decision to stop manning the Coast Guard station in Grand Marais. I've been working with Chairman Deschamps, and this is Dr. Seth Moore from Grand Portage as well. I'm working with these guys to come up with a plan to figure out how we're going to deal with the loss of the Coast Guard, basically. The jurisdiction for Cook County extends up to, it's 36 miles out, is what it is.
okay.
That is our jurisdiction. That's what we're responsible for. Now, if the Coast Guard isn't here, statutorily, the Sheriff's Office is required to perform all search and rescues and drag for dead bodies, basically. That's statutorily, we are required to do that. Whether we can or not, that's remains to be seen. So what we have done is work together to come up with a letter to our federal partners, senators, and basically says, we've been left high and dry here, and we need some help because we can't afford the watercraft that it's going to take, and we can't afford the staff and the training to perform all of this. So I'm going to let Seth go. He has some talking points.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a great job in introducing this, but, as you guys know, the Coast Guard station closed here in the summer of 2022. That puts the burden of on-water rescues basically with Cook County Sheriff's Department or the Grand Portage Tribal Government. We've been doing on-water rescues in Grand Portage for about the last decade, averaging, 6 to 10 a year, usually people traveling to Isle Royal and end up with motor trouble. What we are seeing, however, is a greater level of incidences and people that are worse prepared for the conditions of Lake Superior. This started with the pandemic. We're seeing more tourists in our region, more tourists that don't know anything about the Great Lakes, how to recreate on the Great Lakes safely. We have had instances of people taking a pontoon boat to Isle Royal with a 40-horse single-screw motor, literally got scared when they got out there and called us and asked for a tow back. We had a guy in a kayak last year, put a sail on his kayak with the intention of sailing to Isle Royal. He actually drifted 10 miles south to the Reservation River. No navigational equipment on his vessel whatsoever. Took us hours to find the guy. And this is the stuff we're going to continue to see. The Coast Guard has a federal burden of responsibility to patrol the oceans and the Great Lakes, and they've basically absconded without accomplishing that responsibility. And this is a huge area of water. We're talking the Ontario border down to Schroeder, out to the Michigan border, including Isle Royal. It's about 1,500 square miles. We've been doing this in Portage with our fisheries biology vessel and our conservation enforcement vessel. Pat's crew's been doing this with an 18-foot open open vessel. And these are not the right resources to do this with. So we know what the right resources are. We've studied this. It takes these, 25 to 30-foot safe boats. They're rigid body inflatables with a full pilot house, navigational equipment, searching equipment, and trained operators. And these vessels run about $350,000 to $500,000 apiece. So if we want to adequately set up both Grand Portage and Cook County law enforcement, we're going to need a minimum of $1 million startup costs just to get the actual equipment that we need to do this. And then we'll need some trained operators that need to be on patrol. Pat has made a great point in some other meetings about this, that, when the Coast Guard was here, they did some level of patrolling. People knew to have safety equipment on their vessels. They knew to be prepared. They knew to have their vessels registered. In the absence of any level of patrolling, we're going to see even worse situations, I think. And someone's going to die, and that burden of responsibility is going to be on us. So, I think I guess we've drafted this letter. It's getting polished, I would say, at this point, and we hope to ship it out to our Congress people and senators relatively soon, and probably state legislators as well. But I think we're just asking for either a similar letter of support or at least support from the Grand Marais City Council for this as well.
Just as a side note, did anyone able to have a conversation with them when they were here on Saturday or over the weekend?
With whom, Coast Guard or with the?
Some of the people
Oh,
that
with
you have
some
in
of the-
your letter were here over the weekend. Just curious if, you're able to, bring it up.
Not yet.
Well, it's not the first time this has happened. We had a Coast Guard auxiliary, remember, for quite a few years, and that's like same thing, trying to put a Band-Aid on a huge incision. I mean,
How does a border patrol fit in with this? Because I know their boat is very similar to the vessel that the
Yeah,
Coast Guard
and that's
uses.
exactly
I don't know
what
what
we
their
would-
responsibilities are, but they do have a boat. But I mean,
They have a boat, and we work, pretty closely with the Border Patrol. If we needed them,
they'll help.
they'll help,
If
but
they can, yeah.
if they're here, I mean, a lot of them are gone on assignment.
Right.
It's kind of a shot in the dark sometimes
Right.
to get that. So what we're looking for, and we brought this to the county board on Tuesday, yesterday morning, to get their support behind it, and that's what we're asking for your support, so we can start, in the absence of the Coast Guard, what we're looking at is basically having a Marine unit for the sheriff's office, and they would do specifically Lake Superior patrol, from Memorial Day till the end of September, and then we would find other duties for them after that.
Yeah.
what does this require anything more than the actual boats? Does it require any physical space or buildings?
Good question.
Well, I've been in contact with the Coast Guard, and as it stands now, we can use their garage down there and their slip for now. That could change at any point, but, at least we have that. We don't have a craft to put there, but, we're making some baby steps right now.
Right.
It does too require some level of training for the vessel operators.
Oh, yeah.
There are all sorts of endorsements, there's all sorts of captain's licenses, but people on average doing rescues will be towing vessels back. They should have some level of wilderness first responder training as well. So to get trained and qualified people will take some resources. I think Sheriff was talking about maybe hiring 3 full-time equivalents so that he could have 2 on patrol at any given point in time, emphasizing, say, Thursday through Sunday when we have the most vessel traffic. But
Right.
to me, that sounds like a really safe and logical plan and way of doing this, because between Grand Portage and Grand Marais, we could always have one vessel on staff. So that if there was a requirement to run down the shore to grab somebody from Grand Marais, we could certainly do that.
And when the Coast Guard left, it seemed like they were saying like, "Oh, we can still cover you."
They can. They
Duluth.
can come up from Duluth, and they can come from Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah.
I mean, but by the time they get up here from
Yeah,
Duluth,
I know.
it's gonna be far too late.
Yes.
So-
Yeah.
So yes, they can cover us, but,
But not really.
yeah.
It just looks good on paper, right?
Yeah, we're leaving, but not.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the next challenge is where we're gonna try to get these resources from. You know, we're gonna reach out to our tribal liaison to the Coast Guard and see if we can get some direction from them to where this funding could possibly come from, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a work in progress, but we're definitely gonna keep on it, so.
And it's definitely worth having the conversation with the Coast Guard about the potential interagency transfer of excess vessels. You know, there are always vessels on governmentauctions.com and that sort of thing. So we may be able to get some of the feds to there's several federal agencies that have vessels, and we may be able to get them to transfer vessels to us, which could certainly reduce some of the cost.
Yeah.
A pontoon boat?
Pat can drive that one.
I think the funny part is they were all the way down to Todd Harbor with that pontoon boat, if you know the island.
Yeah.
That's a quarter way up the
In
north
distress
side.
or
That's
just,
where they made it to with
To.
their pontoon boat. And then
just
figured-
touring?
And then figured out,
Oh, then try to get back.
we probably shouldn't be out here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
they
that's
were
halfway
actually
down the island.
perfectly
Yeah.
fine. They were tied up at a dock. They simply just got scared to come back, which they should have been scared to leave in the first place. The fear hit them a little bit too late.
Yeah, it's not,
man.
Whatever got the Coast Guard back the last time they left, that would have been, trying to remember, late 70s, when we had the Coast Guard Auxiliary we put in place with a bunch of local people. I don't remember what did it take that got them, I don't remember. We have been abandoned before.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, did they leave because of a funding issue, or did they leave because they just feel they don't need somebody here? They feel
Well-
they can cover it from, 150 miles.
Probably both of that.
It's
I'm just saying, because
You can cover recovery.
It's both.
It's both.
They are going by stats.
Yeah.
So their stats show that they do less than one rescue a year out of the Grand Marais station. Well, this was a point that I brought up, which Seth touched on, that, when the Coast Guard's here, people know that they can get boarded out there at any point in time.
Right.
So they have to have everything, because if they get boarded and they don't have their stuff, well, it's game over. Now, when they know that they're never gonna get boarded out there, because there's nobody here to board them, they can do whatever they want to out there, which is going to in turn lead to more problems for us, I believe.
Yeah.
The other point that, we talked about at the county commissioners meeting is, this area is considered or going to be considered a climate refuge. And so we are seeing more and more tourists escaping hot metropolitan areas to come and recreate here, and some of them coming to live here. And just a lot of these people aren't really prepared for this location and how to recreate. So you get someone who's been, fishing a bass pond their whole life, and they go plunk their open boat into Lake Superior. They're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that. Bobby brought this up yesterday. We get a lot of open boats leaving out of Grand Portage. You sometimes get 50, 60 boats in a day, and a bunch of them are these just open boats that are not Lake Superior vessels.
I think that's very true in general. There's just a lot of people doing stuff and they don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys. I think we should get behind this and support the request.
Yeah.
I'd make motion to approve the sheriff's request for a letter of support, whether it's this or something that's close to verbatim to this, and I'd also, like, as the process moves forward, just reach out and things, whatever, I think the likely ownership of the Coast Guard station will likely be the city of Grand Marais whenever that slow turning ship happens. And so, if this is gonna be a long-term thing, I won't be on the council at that point, but I think it's worth you guys coming back if we can do that to help support it. I would
Yeah.
find it hard to believe that the council wouldn't be supportive of that, so that's my motion, kind of, and ramble.
Yeah, I'll second the ramble.
Motion's been made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Thanks
sorry you
for
guys had to
some
come at all.
success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funding.
Thanks for digging in on it.
Well, I'd like to add one more thing.
Yeah.
On November 18th, the land conveyance of Passion Pit will be happening.
Okay.
So the Commissioner of Transportation will be here.
That's right.
And a lot of other dignitaries, so.
November
When we get
18th,
the-
you say?
when we get- huh?
18th of November?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we get closer, we'll send you an invite.
Thank you, Ben.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Bob.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the next item. Planning Commission report. We have 3 resolutions to go over tonight. Let's see, this the first one is the Groth Dumas, is that how you pronounce that? Conditional use permit? Do you want, we want to do these individually, correct?
You want me to summarize?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll do these individually and then we'll...
So, for the first one, this actually had a conditional, this property had a conditional use permit for nightly rental previously, which was passed by, you might have been here, you were here, I was here, I don't think you were here.
not.
But anyway, so the conditional use permits does not go with the property, it goes with ownership. So there's new ownership at this house. It's in the, what's the rec?
Resort commercial
Resort-
neighborhood.
It's your
Resort
neighborhood.
commercial.
It is our neighborhood.
Our neighborhood.
Resort.
Much more than,
Resort commercial, yeah, you're out of it, 'cause
yeah,
you're
I know,
too far
I
away.
know, I
Yeah. So resort commercial, so if you look at what's happening around there, I mean, right next door to it is the Feather Nest, is that what it's,
Feathers
right?
Nest
Feathers
in
Nest
there.
Inn
know.
and,
Yeah,
Cabin rentals.
yep.
yeah.
On
So-
the block.
The short and sweet of it was that we just said, yes, you can continue to use this. There was discussion of off-street parking, and they actually would be, there's a spot off to the north side of the house that they actually
Yeah.
thought about converting that, so you could get, comfortably fit 2 cars without having to either park on the boulevard or, to be fully within the properties. There was some conversation that they might be converting the garage space into like an extra bedroom, not an extra unit. It would all be, the whole house would be rented.
Yeah.
That was clarified.
Okay.
But just that, so that if that happened, then they would potentially change. But, they talked about it, and they're working on it. It's local folks that bought it and
Yeah.
were familiar with them. So anyway,
And if I could chime in, so then the only other thing was that Stacy was saying that she did vote against it the first time because it was a
Right.
single family and then it converted to nightly rental, but it was just recently nightly rental and these people are just continuing it on.
right,
Okay.
good point. Otherwise, it was unanimous this time around with those there.
So right across the street from Feathers Nest, the corner house or the one up from
No,
it?
It's right
Right
Directly
next
up.
to it.
In
just
between
north.
them.
Just north.
Directly uphill.
Oh, uphill.
Yeah.
So between the Feathers Nest and all the little cabins.
It's
the
right
mix-
north.
Oh, I was going across the street. Oh, they just bought, okay, now I know which one you mean.
That's right across from Austin.
Right,
Yeah.
now I know which one you
Yeah.
mean. Oh, I didn't realize it got sold. Got it.
Yep,
I was going to the ones over that already were.
no.
Okay.
So that one, I guess, do you want
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
For resolution 2022-17.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Do we have a
Of
second?
which you have an updated version in front of you.
Yep.
Should I sign it? Just sitting in his chair, so I thought.
What?
to, I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded by Anton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to 2022-18 Schubert. Conditional use permit, that is,
It's right by the.
Yeah.
And that one was,
approved by the planning commission.
I know it was,
Okay.
but can you remind me, because there's no map on this one.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's in the mixed use zone. It's right across the way from the brewery. or up on the.
Oh, yeah,
corner of the
right,
next
okay,
block.
now.
Yeah.
It's kitty corner, it's across the street from the brewery.
No, it's on that.
Across the street and
Across
up
the
top of
street and up on the
block.
Top of the
corner.
block, yes.
Yeah.
It's
Across the
on
street from the Brazel's rental unit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I see they've been working on that house.
Yes,
A
that's
lot.
the one that
Yeah,
they've been working on.
Yeah, I thought that was the right one. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I probably had the same confusion at the planning commission meeting as to where exactly it was until Mike pointed out where it was, and then I had noticed the work happening there too, so.
Yeah.
I think this was one that there was an assumption made that the conditional use permit for short-term rental went with the property. It was clarified that was not the case, right?
I don't believe they had a conditional use permit, the prior owners.
Oh, really?
I
Oh,
think it
that's
was,
right.
But it had been operated as a rental previously.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it was short-term or long-term. It was, might have been.
It was both.
It was both, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a rental property.
And that's what's happening.
Already.
It's in the zone that, the very finite zone that we allow these things to happen.
Yep.
Or zones, I
Yeah.
guess. So that was also unanimous. There was also conversation about off-street parking with the work that's happening, and it was clarified that there is off-street parking accessible off of
On
the
the-
alley.
On the what side? The
west
west
Is
side.
there off-street-
West side.
Is there off-street parking south from the
I-
street?
I don't think so.
There's
I
no
think
driveway
it's-
there, okay.
Not on
No,
that
their
one.
driveway's on the west side off the alley.
Yeah.
Off the
Yeah.
alley
Kinda
and
like
into the
behind,
back,
right?
okay.
In and behind,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they have parking.
So that was, I think, one of the things I brought up. Did you just watch the video?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything else that I forgot?
Well, I think that was it. But was there, thing I didn't look, or I couldn't see was is there a garage there? Was there a garage there? On that?
There was.
Yeah.
On the overhead picture. there's-
Oh,
But I
okay.
don't believe it's being used as a garage. I think it's actually being used as
Just
a
storage?
rental unit or part of the living space.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But under this, it'll be just the single unit.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to have two units.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, we approved that one too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, do we need we have our motion to approve?
Yeah, I would move to approve resolution 2022-18, the Schubert Quillopa conditional use permit.
Okay, do we have a second?
Again,
Seconded by Tracy.
Back to Tracy, your last question. On their application, they indicate the detached garage will not be part of the rental.
Okay, great.
There is a bedroom in it, but they won't be renting it out.
Okay.
Okay. Motion was made, seconded by Tracy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 2022-18 has been approved. Moving on to 2022, must be 19, block variance.
Come on up, Bruce. Don't you want to talk about it?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay, great.
I just want to be here in case.
Oh,
In case there's
things are going
questions.
so well, we don't want to.
Jinx it.
He wants to talk about the lighthouse that he built. So this one had a little bit more discussion because the way that the variance or the application was made, the understanding was that Bruce wants to build an office and a residence up above the existing Sydney's. So because there was a variance to build that building in the first place, and this is happening within the vegetation line setback, any modifications to that has to go back through the process. So that's what this request is for. One of the things in there was our understanding, if I'm remembering it correctly, oh, here he comes, was that he was gonna be living there, but it sounds like he's only gonna be living there part-time, and then living elsewhere in the summer and renting it in the summer, but living there in the winter. Is that seasonal, right?
Other way around.
Okay, other way around.
And it'll take a conditional use permit to use it.
So he'll have to come back in
He'll have
order
to come
to
back
use it
for
as a
that.
nightly rental in that
Yeah.
aspect. No, actually to live there. That's the
live there.
condition, to
Yeah,
live
yeah.
there. You
Nightly
can rent
rental's
it,
allowed.
He can rent it
but he
during the
can't
winter,
live
but-
there without another conditional use permit. So this is allowing the construction to happen of the additional level that he's adding within the setback of the vegetation zone. That's all this is addressing. If indeed he wants to live there, he'll come back in front of us and ask for that.
Great.
Okay. But would you still build if the answer was no on your next
Yeah.
request?
Yeah, I know, I mean, I know nothing's guaranteed, so I think I wouldn't be predicating building it on that it would be necessarily approved that I would use it as a residence. It's still a good project for me at the way, you know, at this level for nightly rental. But I will be coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just innately saying that the second thing is already okay. You're like,
We're
if
not
you,
saying
if,
that.
We're not saying
You're
that.
not, but I mean, if you said this only works for me,
Oh,
if
right.
the answer is,
Right,
then
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
And the thing that he'd be asking for is to provide long-term housing, right? Versus like
For himself.
nightly rental for himself
So-
versus nightly
But-
rental, which is allowed as is, as it sits because of the zoning.
Right, and further to make his argument, the idea is that he would be living there so he could have his workers stay in his house. So it's kind of worker housing and long-term housing,
Yeah.
two in one.
But that's not what
But
we're
it's not
talking about.
guaranteed.
But that's
It's not
not
guaranteed.
guaranteed, and that's not what we're talking about tonight. Sorry.
Right.
But Bruce wants to
Exactly.
proceed no matter what would happen.
That's right. Because
Okay.
this is going to look different.
yeah,
It's really
In a good way.
Saying it.
In a good way. It'll be an improvement.
Well, okay, so now we're talking literally, it's going to look better.
Well.
oh,
Well,
yeah,
you
I
meant
well,
you're
I think
asking
it's
for
there's
it.
like,
Asking for it.
it's
Like
just,
physically the building.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's all I have for a summary on that.
And it's just, it's west,
Yeah, so the
which is
way
this
that-
way.
It's 20 feet.
So it's going to be coming towards the street, and it's
street.
going to be going over where the patio, not the whole patio, it's going to be partially covering over the patio.
So instead of people standing outside without
They'll be
cover, there'll be
underneath.
like a rooftop over that. So
I do think you should cantilever it, just saying.
the whole thing,
Yeah.
just to show them.
just to show me.
No, I won't be doing that.
No,
So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-19.
I would second that.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Motion carries.
And gals,
Yep.
Thanks, Bruce.
appreciate it.
All right, Bruce.
Stay warm, it's
You
coming.
too.
Nah, it's fine. Still got plenty of summer.
Summer extended.
Okay, next on our agenda is Northhouse Folk School presentation. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Greg.
Good evening. Hi, Carol. I don't know if everybody knows Carol Winter, our board president.
Carol.
She's been with us before. Great to have everybody here. Thank you. Oh, share my screen, but I'll do that in a moment. So, my understanding and our charge is to come and report on the work and effort our planning effort that led us to kind of when we, advanced this first idea of, well, let's build a classroom in the community. So hold on there, we've got some things to talk about. And so where we are now. So, got a series of slides, I think, that'll help kind of share a bunch of background, set the stage, and also then position you guys, as I understand it, to have a conversation. Okay, well, how would a lease negotiation work from the city's perspective? And we're not at that meeting, and then deciding if and how and when we sit down together. I think that's the plan, right? So, okay, so I'll share my screen. Here we go. Go. Okay, I see. Sorry about that. Here we go. Did that work, sir?
It's working.
There we go. There you go.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so City of Grand Marais and North House Folk School Work Session, October 12, 2022. Here's the plan. We're going to walk through kind of 5, 6 kind of key areas that'll lead us to, what are our next steps? First, going to share an overview of the vision and strategic priorities of the school. One of the questions that's been asked is, where are you guys trying to go? Where are you? Where are you trying to go? What are your priorities? So I want to talk about that. Second is talk a little bit about how the planning process has worked for us. It's really not just this idea of what buildings are we going to build. You start with an inventory. You look at core drivers. You think about alternatives. So we're going to walk through that effort so you can understand kind of the strategic issues, questions, stuff that we talked about. And then we'll pivot there to kind of a process of, well, Jesus, North House sets the stage for doing something like this. How can you afford to do this kind of stuff? Well, how does that work? You're a nonprofit. Is that the same as everybody else? Is that different? And then clearly then also talking about next steps. So, overview, key question, well, what is North House trying to do? I think the simplest statement is our goal right now, and always has been for 25 years, is to pursue our mission, which is to enrich lives and build community by teaching traditional northern crafts in a student-centered learning environment that inspires the hands, the heart, and the mind. Okay, well, that's a groovy thing. What does that mean? And, we have other things that drive what the definition of that is. And one of the great examples of that is a vision statement that is in North House Folk School's strategic plan. And, what does North House become? We are one of the institutions that teach in the world of traditional craft that really defines what it looks like, that really brings the story of the North alive like no other teaching institution does in North America. And that's really forging and advancing and creating the next generation of artisans who are part of this, even as we create students who are curious and care about the North. So lots of different things, but the idea of vitality in the world of craft, honoring the connection to the landscape, creating lifelong curiosity, creating strength and joy, focused on community, advancing developing skills, and clearly connecting to traditional crafts from around the world and from many, many different cultures. And again, that's kind of a nice big statement. Well, what does that mean, Greg? And the key idea becomes, as we move into our strategic plan, is we have 5 strategic goals and priorities during the window of 2020 to 2024 that are really the drivers and definitely informed our planning efforts as we dug in. And we will be in 2023 revisiting and advancing our strategic plan, so it's not like this thing is near its finish. It's just you always are toggling right one step forward as you go. We did, of course, approve the strategic plan in January of 2020, 2 months before the world changed a lot. So certainly things have changed. Key ideas: investing in programs that inspire and connect, advancing the future of craft, remaining rooted in place, strengthening and widening our circle of support, and securing our vision through a campus and operational investment. So clearly you can see in number 5 there, securing our vision through campus and operational investment. We're already talking about where are we going and how's our campus got to evolve to get us there. Yeah.
Yeah, so Greg, I just wanted to be sure I'm understanding. And is this a rank? I mean, these are ranked.
No,
This is
definitely not. No, these
Okay.
are 5 key priorities that are all equally important,
Okay.
that are the drivers. Although clearly, what comes first? Bringing the mission to life through programming. I mean, that's the other way to think about it is the thing on the bottom is the foundation that supports all the work that goes above, right? I mean, there is no ranked intention there.
Okay.
Yeah. And these phrases, there's a whole paragraph that defines what each paragraph, what each phrase means. And there's 5 to 8 different bullets under each that says, well, what does that mean? And I didn't bring those here to show them to you tonight, not because I don't like you, or because they don't matter, but because, we're trying to cover lots of ground. But what kind of things do they include? Okay, investing in programs that inspire and connect. Well, of course, it talks about programs, but also talks about our recent efforts to more than quadruple our scholarship offerings and expanding our work-study program, because if we're going to have great programs, we got to make them accessible to everybody. When we talk about advancing the future craft, it means grounding and advancing the work with our intern program, which has been huge in our world in the sense of attracting talented staff, talented instructors, our ADP program, but also building a relationship with Grand Portage. This past year, we launched a new relationship with them where we're co-hosting programming up in Grand Portage, and half of the openings are for people from the band to participate in the coursework, scholarshiped by the National Monument, and they're just in. I mean, lots and lots of really cool things that are about where are we trying to go, not just in the sense of are we growing, but in the sense of is our work digging deeper into us being a really positive and presence in this community and in the world of craft. So a whole different way of doing this, is just to think about where we started. The picture on the left is 1997. That's when we moved on to the campus, onto the city-owned property, had our first lease, 6 months. And we've made a huge amount of progress together. I mean, I would say that's what those 2 pictures say. Took 2 buildings, been used for 6 decades, very well in kind of a more of an industrial sense, now have been transformed into a really huge community resource where many, many community members are down on the harbor in that space, creating year-round vitality. Obviously, a couple of historic fish houses have vanished, but one is still there, and some of those spaces have been repurposed. Commercial fishing still on the harbor. Dockside Fish Market still on the harbor, right? So, lots of things happening in the neighborhood, and yes, yet also a really strong sense of continuity there too. So when you do a campus inventory, what do you do? Well, the first thing you do when you do master planning is you ask a simple question. What's here that we don't know about? Because a lot of what you get to do is trying to figure out how to make what you have still continue to work and or improve it. And so the picture on the right is, I hope everybody sees, that is the campus. There's the city-owned property to the left, the Eckel property in the middle, the dockside property to the right, and across the street is the green building. Can everybody see that, or do you want me to point at can everybody see that successfully? And so, well, that's great. Well, what are all those lines on there for? They're really confusing, and the answer is, yeah, you're right, they are really confusing. They're a bunch of the stuff you have to think about when you're planning. F, the line that kind of comes up across the middle of the city-owned property and then horizontally, is a huge sewer line, city-owned, that comes right through our campus. Obviously, we can't build on top of that. G, up and to the left, that's a 3-phase power line and also internet cabling that runs through the campus. They're buried utilities. We can't be on top of that. The green line down below is the vegetation line. The 40-foot setback line is the next line in that's there. The D, the vertical line that's kind of shaded orange, that's a MnDOT easement for a drainage line that services Highway 61. We can't build on top of that. Obviously, the setback or the highway easement defines, and so right away you start to go, well, you got a lot of room there, and then you kind of go, oh wow, there's a lot of stuff there that you have to plan around. Not any different than anybody else has to do, but it underscores the idea that there's lots to think about as you work, on any piece of property. One of the key things also that became part of our campus inventory is after we bought the dockside properties and we were in the middle of planning, we learned from MnDOT and the city that they were going to close the Fifth Avenue parking, or a driveway, which obviously totally altered how we access and can utilize the dockside parcel. Rather than being able to have vehicles drive through, now any vehicle that comes down onto that property has to have the capacity to turn around, or said very differently, we need to tell certain vehicles they cannot come down, which when you're trying to get food service deliveries for your restaurants, a couple neighbors like ours, that's an issue. So other things that we learned about, well, the little yellow circle is, of course, the little yellow house. The little yellow house has been there a really long time. We learned the little yellow house is not going to be there a very long time. The foundation has literally cracked in half. There's a northern section and a southern half. The building is bending. When we remodeled it into the school store, we did a bunch of remediation. Safe to say, you can only do that so many times before it just won't work. The little orange triangles are the two buildings on campus that have a second story that don't have ground access. So as a public nonprofit, we can't use that second story space for any kind of programming because it doesn't meet public accessibility requirements. So one of the issues, again, that we're going to have to wrestle with is, oh, wow, one of those spaces was a classroom. As we take this offline, what's its future purpose going to be? Because right now it can't be used for public purposes. So as I just mentioned, with the other thing that we learned in the pandemic is we already knew two of our smallest classrooms, again, the magenta diamonds, two of our smallest classrooms, one, were too small to power coursework that would really generate meaningful income for instructors and for North House. But it turns out in a world where quality matters also means space for doing quality programming, space for keeping people healthy, space for being able to have tools to do your craft. Those two classrooms, the space on the northern end of the blue building and the upstairs classroom in the fish house, we knew, okay, these spaces are going to have to come offline. And we're going to need to replace them because operating with 8 classrooms has been our norm. And finally, obviously, as we did our inventory and we talked about planning in the future, we acknowledged, yeah, there's one big piece of our campus that we don't exactly know the future of. We can't build a building on there that we own. We know that we have a lease that could renew, but that's not totally in our control. And so how we can plan on that piece of property is different than the 3 other parcels that we own. So lots of pieces. Again, we really haven't done anything very imaginative yet, but we're trying to understand what's here, what can we see, what don't we know about, how do we start then to integrate these realities into the visioning for campus. So of course the next thing you do is you say, okay, well, what are the core drivers that make the school work, and how do we make sure that whatever we pursue works with those core drivers? And here's just a really simple example. You've all seen this spreadsheet before, but you probably, just in case people don't remember, this spreadsheet shows you how many student days are in each month of the year over the period from 2011 to 2020. So the stack of columns furthest to the left is the month of January. And you will note that the bar on the left, 2011, is about a third of the height of the bar furthest to the right, 2020. Why? Because enrollment and participation in coursework over the course of 10 years more than tripled in January at North House. You'll notice that trend is the same in February, the second stack of columns in. In March, the third stack of columns in. You'll notice March on the far right drops off. That's March of 2020. I wonder what happened. Right? And et cetera, et cetera. Greg likes this chart because it shows, wow, we're running a thriving school. You see the trend, every month is going up. I think it's also a pretty compelling case. What do you notice? Actually, the bars, there's a lot of activity in every month of the year. Our vitality fuels the vitality of this community. So this is not our service to local youth. This is not our instructor retreat that we host free of charge for all the artisans we partner with. This is not in any way the Wooden Boat Show or Unplugged, but this is just coursework. And this is the way, this is the way we make a living. So, of course, another core driver is all the other community partnerships we do. We do lots of after-school youth programming. We have youth summer camps, et cetera, and we try to factor in, well, what's the community need from us? Who rents space from us? What programming do we do that isn't about revenue, but more about service, et cetera, et cetera? And one of the other key partners is the city. And one of the key pieces that was in our agreement with you when we signed it 20 years ago was this. You get to meet 3 performance criteria if you want this lease to renew. First is, you have to grow. Sometime in the next 25 years, you have to be at least 300% of the size you are in 2004. So one of the other reasons that bar chart mattered is because the city said, you grow. And effectively in 2019, we got there. We were about within 1 percentage point of the threshold. So don't worry, we're planning on getting there, right? So 2, they said, you've got to maintain at least 200%, at least 200% of 2004 levels. That's not been a problem. Second thing it says is you have to be fiscally strong, and the primary measuring stick for that is you have to have an endowment of at least $250,000. We have that. And the last thing is the city, you have to take care of our buildings, and that equates to the city can't send you a letter saying you're not taking care of the buildings, you not respond, and the work doesn't get done. That's what that threshold of so far, we haven't had any letters sent to us, I believe, correct? So lots of partners, from the city to after-school youth programs, to the North Shore Music, to the Swing Band, which has been down doing free concerts on campus, right? So, of course, another key core driver is, well, what's the stuff you need that's not a classroom? Yeah, you teach stuff, but that's not the only thing that makes North House work. And so all these little yellow dots are some of those things. We need public parking, like the stuff that's in the upper level, up above the core campus on the city-owned property. We need instructor living space, which is the dot that's in the upstairs of what we call the fish house. We need intern living space because we have 10-month interns, which is in the upstairs of the milling shop right in the center. We need campus accessibility. I don't know how many of you know this. The driveway coming down to the campus is not fully accessible. It's too steep. So someday, as we build new buildings, we need to ask a simple question: how can the campus become fully accessible? And one answer is one of these buildings has an elevator so people can come down safely in any weather, right? So these are the kind of things you think about as a public institution. Where do we store things? Where are our ADP living space and workshops going to be someday in the future? Right now, we rent space in the Bowen Studio. Right now, we rent a house to house our ADP participants. What about services for neighboring businesses? The fishermen, fisherman's daughter, angry trout. Where's the garbage? How does the recycling work? How do they deliver the groceries? Who hauls the fish out? Who hauls the fish guts out? All these things have to be part of how campus works. It's not just a question of where do you put the classroom. This is about making all these things happen even as a classroom emerges that brings the school's mission to life.
Can you clarify what ADP means?
Sure, thank you very much. ADP is the Artisan Development Program. In a sense, one way to think of it is Intern 2.0. Internship opens the door to craft and nonprofit programming. The Artisan Development Program is a program for 4 artisans. Each person stays for 2 years. And it's about an emerging artisan who's kind of launching into the world, the next kind of stage in their life of craft. In our belief, they're going to be core instructors for the school and core instructors in the world of traditional craft for the next 2 decades. Really key part of our effort.
Okay.
Great question. So, wonder of wonders, a core driver here. Here's another one. Do the numbers add up? I mean, this is, how do we make a living? So this is a spreadsheet. These pie graphs are simple pie graphs that are from 2019. And I use 2019 not to show dated material, but the last time the world was different than it is now, right? And the simple question is, how do we make a living? Well, the big blue pie on the left, biggest pie, blue thing, that's half of our revenue comes from the coursework we teach. Being down 2 classrooms means 25% of that income's at risk. Other places we make support, the school store, that generates someplace around 10 to 12% of our gross income. That school store is a big deal, generates revenue for the school, sells consignment craft for instructors. This is, again, a way we make a living. Membership support, grants. That little green slice is rental income. We rent space to other neighboring businesses who are also part of this community. And of course on the right, ours is how we spend money. So part of our question is, if you want to have a great scholarship program, a great work study program, if you want to host both regional, local, and national instructors, you have to have money to help them make a living even as you do. And so fiscally, the school needs to stay strong if we want to make all of those things happen. So at some point, you mix all that together and you say, great, what do we know? Okay, well, we know the little yellow house is breaking in half. We're going to have to replace it, and that's okay because the school store is too small. Let's build a new front door. Boom, 1 yellow dot. Second dot you say is, okay, more students are coming to North House. It's great to have the highway project done. It sure would be great to have some more places for people to park who are students, but also people to park who want to go get fish and chips or sit down for lunch or dinner at the Angry Trout. Well, we should create some parking. So see the big long oval across the street. Is that in front of the green building? Great question. But I mean, we're starting to brainstorm how could this work? And of course, the circle down by the water, what does that show? Well, that shows example 1, shaping alternatives. How about if we put a classroom down by the water? Well, guess what? The community told us that was a clever idea. That's not the idea we're most excited about right now. So look for a different solution. But really, this is what the inside of master planning is about. Shaping multiple alternatives, talking about their strengths, talking about their weaknesses, trying to figure out, does it allow us to do all the things we need to do? So, another alternative, example number 2. Well, we could build out parking across the street, evolve, replace the little yellow house, and we could put a building on city-owned property. This is an alternative that came up in our conversations with neighbors and community members as they talked about, well, where could the building go otherwise? Because when we ask people, well, geez, do you want us to make the green building twice as tall by adding space up there? Most people say, well, no, that'll obstruct somebody's view. Or some people, okay, well, should we replace the dockside building and da-da-da? And people say, no, I like the restaurant. Can we keep the restaurant just the way it is? So you talk through, and where can a couple classrooms fit? And there's an example. That said, we don't have an agreement with you. So right now in the planning process, where are we? We are here. We're here. What are the things we know? We'd love to be able, we know we need to replace the little yellow house. There's really not a choice. So probably that's an area where we'll focus our efforts next. We'd love to be able to grow public parking, but the challenge is, where are the 2 parcels where we could conceivably add classrooms? There's one answer is the green building parcel, and the other is the dockside parcel, right? These are our choices right now. And if we build on the green building, you could go up, but you could also go out. Well, if you go out, the parking's gone. And of course, if you revisit the dockside parcel, the question is it in the empty spaces that are on the dockside parcel? Is it replacing one of the buildings that's on the dockside parcel? I mean, it's change. It's some choices, some real choices. So are we talking about this stuff? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we are. Because right now, these are our choices.
What about the land to the left?
Yeah, so we own the
Further
parcel
north.
to the left, yep, so we own the parcel to the left of the green building, we call it Lang parcel, because we bought it from Bruce Lang. You know, we've started due diligence with the Grand Portage Tribal Council, focused on investigating its history and understanding what's there. There's community history that suggests either on that property or in that neighborhood there are tribal burial site, or there, you know, indigenous burial sites. We've had Minnesota State archaeologists there. Next step is having what's called the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council up on site hopefully this fall. And so there's, you know, process. This is a couple years of work ahead before, you know, because we agreed with the tribal council was kind enough to say, yes, we believe you should buy it. Yes, we believe there's a bunch of due diligence we need to do together if we're going to move forward in a way that's appropriate. We need to know things before we do things. So, so is that parcel part of the future of the school? Yeah. What does that mean? Great question. Is that part of an answer that needs to start to be implemented in 2023? The simple answer is no. That's not the easy answer, but it's the honest answer right now. There's a lot of work that has to be done. So, you know, so some people then look at you and say, well, great, but geez, how could you buy the dockside parcel, Greg? How can you talk about building a welcome center? How can you talk building a classroom? This all costs money. Where's your secret bank account? You know, I just need to say this really simply. We don't have a secret bank account. What we have is a bunch of people who care about the world, want the story of traditional craft to emerge as a valuable part of, you know, the human experience, think rural communities like Grand Marais matter, and want to invest in a place they love called the North Shore. And what does that translate into? You say, here's what we want to build. Do you want to be involved? And people either say yes or no. And the answer right now is people believe North House and Grand Marais are doing incredible things together, that there is a future here that matters and that we should invest in it. You know, and so, and we build when we have funds. It's literally that simple. We don't go get a mortgage, we build when we have funds. So who are some of those supporters? The Lloyd K. Johnson Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, the Bush Foundation, the Mardag Foundation, the Blandon Foundation, the Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, IRRB, Northland Foundation, many, many local businesses, and many, many, many individual donors. Last year, I think we had something like 1,350 different individuals who supported us, and that's just the individuals. You know, so North House is powered. We move forward because people say yes. And that's how this happens. This isn't about secret pools of money. It's about people who believe that making the world a better place is something that's important to do.
What prompted you to where does the secret account come from?
Well, I think some people really wonder, well, how did North House buy Dockside? Where did that funding come from?
It's all
how
public
can North House
information. We've talked about that in our city council meetings, that you got this all from grants that you
Okay,
can
sure. Well,
apply
I'm just
for.
making sure people feel like they understand, how can North House do all this? And that's,
No, we understand, if you will.
and again, I certainly am speaking to you, but I'm also believe this is a community conversation. And so I'm not trying to say doubt in anybody's belief in this, but I want to make it very clear that this is how it works. Okay? So, you know, so of course, a lot more to talk about, but, you know, I think here's the key thoughts as we enter to talk about next steps. So we've worked really hard the past year to stop and to listen to the community. We feel like the community shared some really clear goals. They want to see accessibility by the water. They love to see the commercial fishing industry continue. They love to see the historic fish house cared for. They'd like to see us figure out how to work together evolving the lease so it can work for all of us. So I also hope the cities for North House say, we're more than willing to work together. That said, I want, our planning efforts are continuing. Those question marks on that map are real to us. So we're hard at work. We're trying to figure out what's the path forward right now. And so in that sense, this next step thing, are we going to talk? And how do we talk? And what's the timing? This is a big deal. Matters a lot. And, in our minds, working together on the lease is a great opportunity and for us to also talk about the future together. And that's something we'd really value. So, covered a lot of ground at a pretty high level. Not sure it answered all the questions you have, but the hope was to help you, again, see and learn about the planning process we've done and the work we've done gathering information, understand where we are right now in our planning process, and then reflect on next steps as we look forward. So, questions or comments?
So where you are right now means not the architect plans and the concepts you had a year ago. Is that right? Because I didn't see any of that come up on the screen.
So yeah, the primary drawings we had were focused on the Harborside classroom, the building that we were going to build by the water, because that was the first project on a journey. In the absence of knowing that that's building there, pretty much you go back to the drawing board on every drawing you have.
Including the changes to have, it's more than just the community store, but,
Well,
in the
sure, the front
concept
door-
for
the
the
front
Yellow
door of
House,
the
it wasn't
school.
just a
Absolutely.
store. Because you had a much bigger vision for that. You had a completely different vision for the building around Dockside and around that whole front face. There was a lot more to this in what you spoke to us when you had us come down individually and meet with you, and what I've seen from architect drawings. And that's where I'm not so sure the rest of the community was aware. They knew about the one building
Sure.
that, you came and presented for and asked for variance for, but the rest of it, I'm not so sure they ever had a vision about.
Yeah.
Or picture
And I would just
of.
say that as a board, we obviously saw all those things and recognized that these things evolve over a number of years. And so we have, drawings and pictures in our minds of maybe what some of those next buildings might be, but also know that those can evolve, that they, this is what we're thinking right now. But if that building doesn't come online for 5 or 6 or 7 years, it may need to look different. Like, when it comes time to build something new in the dockside space, we definitely have a priority of having a restaurant there, some kind of fast casual food service for the community. And we have a rendering of what that might look like. But at least from other members of the board I've talked to, we also understand that it could look different from that when the time comes to actually start breaking ground.
I think, I appreciate that. I think one of the things that, we, just in one of our last meeting, when we had, we were trying to find firms to work with the city to do liquor store and city hall. And one of the firm we chose actually is LHB. And in their, why we think we're gonna be good for this, they actually showed this concept, this planning process of what you guys were planning on doing amongst the properties, like that was in their proposal of why they'd be good to do this work. And I think, why isn't that being shared? Because I think it's important. It's a pretty completely different idea than anything that we've been shown by North House. I know that's yours, you guys paid for that, but they're using it as a hey, here's where we'd be good, and to see, right? Is that the document you're talking about?
That's part of it, and the fact that we all came down and heard, and I think all of us did individually. You were kind enough to, I brought, you had me come down, and I think everyone else, and see. And I think that's what I expected to see today. that bigger vision of what you think you will be at some point in time when everything is put together, not just one more classroom. I think that's what no one in this community has had a really good grasp of.
I think
is
that-
what
yeah.
your bigger needs are, and what does that really kind of look like? And you got that to a drawing concept stage. So what I guess I'm asking you, and thanks, Anton, is that gone now so that it's not worth putting up here for people to see, or is it still something you work toward?
I think, as Carol said, I think, or, you know, what I'd say differently is, so where are the two classrooms? And the answer is there is an answer for that question. So any of the buildings that were conceived of, assuming the two classrooms were by the water, all those buildings now change because we have to find that space. This is one of the drivers of the school. And so, you know, are those buildings bigger? Are they taller? Do they extend deeper into the, you know, into the dockside parcel? Yeah, there's a lot of great questions that we're wrestling with. Great is a relative term, you know, serious questions, significant questions. And so, I guess, just to confirm, I had no idea that LHB shared those drawings with you, and that's okay with me. I wasn't aware that they could do that as part of the process. Really, those drawings were created for us internally to think about what are multiple visions of what this could look like. And that's why institutions have boards or city councils. You know, it's,
Yeah, you're just doing.
Yeah, no, and
planning.
they didn't, it's
And it
not
wasn't-
like we didn't see
really well.
everything, right?
Yeah,
But
it
it was
isn't
just
like
like
we
this
got-
snippet, and we're like, whoa,
No.
what's that? Wait, that's North
Sure.
House, right?
Sure.
And then, so
You're
then it's
absolutely right,
like,
that's your
well,
property, we didn't get.
yeah, we
all
didn't,
that.
we
They
don't.
just had the concept drawing, but it totally brought a picture of what you'd already told us anyways. It wasn't like new news.
But I think it is, I mean, for me, it was helpful to be like, oh, okay, right? I mean, to understand, even to have you say like, well, what does dockside look like in the future, right? Like, because one of the things that we kept hearing was that like, people don't touch dockside, we want to have dockside, right? But then to like see this picture where it's like, wait, is that dockside? Like, what is that? That's not the same building. It's totally different, right? So then you're like, well, what is the plan there, right? So it's helpful to have you hear that, or to have me, it's helpful for me to hear you say that. And I guess, kind of away from that, what was the process like, and you would be privy to it, I mean, so would Mike, because he was here, but I don't think any of us were on the council when the blacksmith shop was built, for example, so that's on city property, and it was constructed, like, what was that process like? Like, how did that go down? Like, were you guys like, hey, we need to do this, and came to the city council, and they were like, okay.
yeah, so our lease, yeah, gives
Basically.
us permission to come and say, we would like to continue to improve the property.
Yeah.
Here's our plan for how to move forward. So we would have done that when the blacksmith shop was just an open-air timber frame, and you said
Yep.
thumbs up. And then you would have done that, approved us moving the timber frame and enclosing it. Now we have a blacksmith shed, not a shed, but a shop.
Oh, sure.
You would have done that again when we added all the timbered entries to the buildings and put the wood. We would have
Yeah.
done that again, and we actually collaborated on the grant that, I think we wrote it and you guys received the money and then we spent the money, right? I think that's the way we're.
That's happened more than once.
I
now.
tripped one.
Yeah, absolutely. In this case, it was the Minnesota Lake Superior Coastal Program to create the outdoor commons.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's been multiple times, and of course, the big difference on all of those projects is as soon as it's built, you own it. Doesn't matter whether we raise the money or not.
Right.
And that's, that might have been the right model for the first part of the journey, and depending on what you build, that, you know, in the price tag, that's one of the factors in thinking about what's the right next step forward.
Sure.
So I get entirely what you're saying in your planning process, unless you figure out one, it's hard to move forward with everything to get one thing figured out, and then that tells you how you can move to the next thing. So I get that, like, until we figure out our classrooms, and we can't do the rest of it. But it would still be really nice if even you just, this would have been our ideal world, because you had that up there. People, you know, it would have been helpful tonight to see that. Like, if this had worked the way we wanted, this is what we envisioned. Because I'm still
Do you
not
mean
sure.
Putting in the original classroom on the harbor, or you mean?
Right, you know,
Saying like, if that had gone through, like, what would the whole thing have looked like?
yeah, what's your vision for
Gotcha.
everything?
Okay.
To see that even though, I get what you're saying. Now that we can't do that, we got to think of a bunch of stuff. But just to know what's your end game is, I think, really what we wanted to let everyone know, because the conversation has been so focused on the fact that we just need one more classroom, whatever.
Two, right?
But
you wanna
it's
see what
not.
it looks like when it's all.
There's a lot more you need, as you've said, and I totally get it. The school store is too small, and if you also maybe want that to be a place where people come and register, and, you know, your entrance and your gate to your facility, I get all that, but I'm not sure everyone else saw that, and it really helps to see a visual, to understand. And from our conversations, there was like, what is going to happen to the fishermen? When I was there last summer, it's like, well, I don't know, this isn't looking like it's going well for fishermen. What about the restaurant? Well, they could lose a view, and I don't know if they're going to be there. We may have to redo this building. And so there's a lot more at stake here, and even though you may not be able to use that planning vision you had, because now you have to rethink it, it'd still be nice to say, okay, this is all of our needs, even just from the sense of sizing. You know, it's obvious you need something bigger than that little yellow house to have your store function well and to move people through, and I get all that. But that's where the thing I was hoping we would see tonight for people.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's what
I
you
mean,
wanted. So, I guess my.
Not
simple
that the rest
observation
wasn't good.
And my question would be, heralding back to that picture of 25 years ago and the white buildings on the harbor, and then the picture of the campus today right next to it. 25 years ago, could we draw that drawing for the community?
well, this isn't 25 years.
I
This is just your.
And the answer is we could not. We could not. And so then the next question is, okay, so what's wrong with the picture then of the campus today?
Well, what's wrong with the picture is space, parking, and lake access. How much more can you grow those three things before you run out of those three things? You know what I'm saying? Unless you can change buildings or move things, I'm not.
Sure.
We've had that conversation, you and I. It's like,
Sure.
You have so much land, you want to do all these things, but then you have to kind of prioritize, okay, what am I going to do because I don't have room for all these things? Unless you move across the highway like you did.
So can I ask a
You know,
question? Okay, so
I'm just
comparing
saying.
campus today
Growth.
to the Forest Service buildings 25 or 30 years ago, which version has more community access to the harbor?
Yeah.
The version with North House
No,
on the water has
yes.
more community access to the, right? I mean, it's public space.
Well, I think there's a lot of
There's public
community
corridors. There's,
25 years ago, people never paid that much attention. We all just wandered around, and we all played down there when we were kids,
Yeah.
and I just don't even think that would be a thought in anyone's head. But there's so many things different in 25 years.
sure.
But what we did want to know, or we wanted the two people in our community to know, was that it was more than just one building that you have needs for, and legitimate ones.
And I hope it's been very clear in my presentation that there's a whole bunch of needs that we're trying to meet and need secure for the future of the campus and future of the school. I
But-
did not, have exactly the concepts of what those buildings look like changed in the past year because the community has asked us to step back and rethink. They have. They are changing. And so we're working hard on that. Do we have new drawings? We don't. Because
Oh, I didn't,
Because-
that's what I'm saying. I didn't expect you to have new ones, but even though it might not be, it still kind of gives everyone a feel for, oh yeah, you know what, they do need this bigger school store thing too, legitimately. You had a plan. It just gives the people a feel for it, that's all. So that's fine.
I
Yeah, I think that's good.
I will say, I've been personally nervous about taking those drawings that we had and publicizing them, because my experience in other arenas has been that when that type of thing happens, and then 5 years later, you don't do what was on that thing, then some people are up at arms at you and throwing rocks. Because,
get it from
hey,
both
you said you were
sides.
gonna do this, and
Yeah,
you
sure.
didn't do it. So it is easier to conceptualize with pictures. You know, classrooms easy to understand, yellow house replacements easy to understand, I think. The dockside structure is farther down the road. And what we really have to look at there is what functions do we need? Again, food is a really important function for there. But meeting space, and that might be community meeting space. Potentially changing our commercial kitchen teaching space, and then being able, potentially, and then being able to take where we do teach and utilize that. The board, as it stands now, is very committed to working with both the owners of Fisherman's Daughter and with the commercial fishermen. That, you know, that's part of the history of the place. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, well, this has been a long conversation, not tonight, it's been an ongoing long conversation. And so, I mean, I do want to reiterate the fact that I appreciate the pause that you guys took, and the fact that you listened, I think was super important. And I think it is beneficial mutually to the city and to North House to figure out a path forward with the city property together, not in purchasing, right? Like to rework the lease. And I think the second part to that then is, well, I don't know, I guess just trying to understand how those things that you spelled out tonight of what your future is, just in the blobs and shapes and kind of colored, right, shapes that we had of like what you think you need, how that impacts. Because I think if we're gonna rework the lease, like I think for it to be beneficial for both parties, I think there should be, well, I don't know, I think it should be clear on like what the acceptable uses are, right, going forward. Like what is that? Like similar to how there was the allowance of the kind of phased approach to the blacksmith shop. Like what other things are gonna happen down on the city property? And, because it's not, to me, it's not as much, I mean, I feel like from the public, there's a lot of conversation about the lease amount and like all that kind of stuff, and like, I think that's an important piece of it. Not as important to me. I really feel like it's the accessibility side of it for the public. Greg, you and I have had that conversation. Like, I think people probably do wander down there, but we're all a lot of Minnesotans, and it's like that looks like somebody's property, and we're not going to go down there, right? And like, so the idea of trying to make it more welcome, which I think is the brilliant idea of working to rehab the Scott Fish House and try and like draw people in with this kind of interpretive idea of that being there will just get people onto campus. And I think the city-owned parcel is important to that. So I personally am not opposed to finding spots if there can be a different parking space found on other property that you own, potentially north side of the highway, to do something else on the city-owned property for classrooms. I don't know, I think we're kind of talking in circles a little bit, but I guess to try and balance, to make sure that like if we're gonna redo the lease, that there's also language and clarifications in there, or whatever we need to say in that works for everybody about what possible future developments are gonna look like on that property. Right, I know, which is like trying to glance into a crystal ball, but you know you have the needs for 2 classrooms. And if the drawings that we happen to glance on, nobody's, you know, right, just because we happen to have it in our packet from a different organization, like how do those things work together? Like what, you know, is that plan actually still viable if you could put 2 small classrooms or 2 classrooms that would function for you on the city property? Well, if that happens in the parking area, I'm just speaking hypothetically, and now you have your classroom situation solved, does that mean like, well, hey, we can actually kind of work on our way down with what this drawing is? To me, that's I think maybe, I don't know if that works or not, because when I look at that, I think they look really neat, but it's building. It's just like solid building, you know, from the driveway down right now to the end of, you know, to the new little ramp that you have, the loading dock that accesses the bottom of Dockside, you know, so it really would change the feel of that stretch of highway if part of in this lease and this idea of like allowing future development of classrooms on the upper portion of the city property, and then this, I know it's just a conceptual drawing or plan, but boy, like there would just be these two small driveways and the rest of it would be buildings, which kind of goes against the visibility of the lake, of the harbor, and I don't know. I mean, it's a.
Well, I'm not sure that, we talked a tremendous amount about views and visual corridors, you know, so I appreciate that you've seen a drawing that you think renders some information to you, and I'm not trying to object to your concern, just to confirm. North House relishes the view of the harbor as much as anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, as you evolve, things change, but the intent is to keep, you know, the visual joy of being on the Grand Marais Harbor alive and well in Grand Marais.
Well, and I would
So-
say that to your point of like, look at the picture from 25 years ago to look at the picture now, right? Clearly what you guys have done to the property is, I think, an improvement. I mean, it is more welcoming whether or not, you know, we can get over our Minnesotanness to actually walk onto campus. The idea of it, I mean, it's, you know, you guys have done, I think, great work in stewarding that land. And the property next to it is yours. It's private property. You guys can kind of do what you want to do within the zoning, you know, regulations that are out there. So our only say really is what can happen on the city property. I don't know.
And as Greg said, there's been extensive discussion about how can North House help draw people in. But, you know, people who aren't from Grand Marais, my perception is, don't seem to have too many qualms.
Yeah, they just walk right in.
Wandering in there, you know, hey,
Yeah.
what's this? But it is an asset for the city, and, you know, one of my goals is that if you grow up in Grand Marais, you just can't imagine it without North House, and I would like people in this community to feel ownership of it.
Sure.
And part of that is the physical structure and also the programming that's offered.
Any more questions from anybody? Well, thank you, Greg, and for the information that you presented to us today. We have a little better view. Well, we didn't get, you know, like the whole, I understand your whole concept about drawing out a complete design, because sometimes you don't achieve that, you know, when you're going building by building, or that's how you started, by starting out in, was it 1997?
Yeah.
And that building burned down, and then you had to recreate something else and go from there.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, last item on the agenda here.
Wait, now you're taking recycling back? What is this? Anton?
I'm still here.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, I was wondering how this was going to
Well, I don't blame them, I'd be upset if I was Greg, because they shouldn't be, I mean, it's okay to look picture like we did.
I'm sure they had some little something that he signed, or
Yeah, for
somebody,
that,
some
to have,
board
no.
member signed.
But I didn't want him to think he signed.
We have one more item.
Of course we didn't.
No problem. Okay, last item on our agenda is Employee Assistance Program. I think I'll have Mike talk about that. I did read it, I just, this is something new for us.
This is something new for us, and
Okay.
this is something that we spoke with our bargaining unit about our last contract, which was a year ago, and agreed during that discussion that we would be willing to add this program, and asked that bargaining unit to tell us which program they wanted us to select. And so that now we are here. This is the program that has been selected, and we're asking you to approve it.
I've been available for many, many years. They've been an employee benefit I've had for many years, kind of a standard
Yep.
thing. You know, if they are good with it, but they totally understand its limitations,
I'm not going to make any claims about that.
but that's fine, that's their,
That's it's on them to read the fine print, maybe. But they reviewed this, obviously, and they selected. So.
We offered them some programs to think about. We spoke with them about what are the particular issues they were hoping that this would help address. And this is the program that we picked based on those conversations.
okay.
Okay. Well, I would make a motion to adopt this employee assistance program, the Empathia. That's the name.
Empathia. We have a motion to adopt the program. Do we have a second?
Second.
Tracy with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Council staff reports. I'll start with,
Yeah,
we'll go to the far left
only
and
one I
work to the
had
right
was
this time.
Planning and zoning, which I wasn't able to make, but Anton was there, so
Covered
it gets
that.
to him.
Covered that.
Yeah, we actually already
We
did
already
that.
kinda
That was
covered
the
all
whole-
that, didn't we?
That was the whole bulk of the meeting.
There was one more thing, but
Oh, right, yeah.
did you ever get those documents?
Not yet.
Okay.
Tracy?
Oh,
Do you have anything
we had a North Shore manage. Yeah. I just remembered, did we have that before this?
to? Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, this is the first one of the month. Okay, yeah, all right. So we had a North Shore Management Board meeting. Some of it was just sort of, things you have to do, like approve the budget or try to get more people to take offices on that board. That went really well. And then just some review of things that we already are well aware of, the bike trail and different things like that. They're just letting the broader audience know. The only interesting thing I believe I've mentioned this before, is that that's the only forum where people similar to Tim Nelson and in our county get together to talk about short stay rentals. So there was quite a bit of conversation about that, because Tim gave the review of where our county is at, and then a little conversation with, where Lake County is at, and they're still in their moratorium and trying to figure out what that, I wouldn't say there's anything big that came out of that, but we did have a lot of review and discussion. I was more interested about where our county was
Yeah.
and what we had decided to do. And now that leads to our city. I'd like to know exactly how we're going to fit into this, because I hope we are. And I hope we will be part of the assessment. People will be paying in
Yeah.
on that as well, and that we will be able, which Tim said it was just the way their software works, they don't pull us out of it, that they gather that information regardless, which we may have talked about last time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to make sure we are fully participating in that.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not.
How do we get on that? Just say we want to join?
If you're talking about their software that checks in on who's doing what, we already fully participate in that because that data is available to us from Tim. If
Okay.
you're talking about their program where they're licensing rental units, then it would be as simple as you passing an ordinance that's the same as their ordinance and them agreeing to, also take on the units that are in the city and figuring out that relationship.
And now we're talking about the short-term rentals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to go down that path, we can add that to an agenda in the future.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Let's do that. I'm sure Tim would love to come talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that
That's-
can be on the to-do list. Yes, Anton?
That was a question I guess I had, was, so there's a Department of Health side to the county side of the permit to do theirs, but like within the city, because we don't have any permits for, is there still the Department of Health requirement?
I think all of the state requirements exist in the city and out of the city.
But we have no way right now of knowing if somebody has that because we don't have enforcement.
Well, we don't have.
We don't have an ordinance.
We're not involved in any of the issues where the county does have a relationship with the MPCA or the Department of Health when they talk about those things.
Yep.
And so they haven't delegated to us any sort of enforcement issues, whereas that has from time to time occurred in the county.
Mhm.
But somebody who is operating a rental unit in the city has to meet all the state requirements, and there are thresholds where they would either need a license or not need one from the state.
Okay.
There's also just, the reason the county is involved in some of those health issues is because they don't have municipal utilities.
Right.
And we do, and that really takes care of a lot of the problems.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
But they have a few other things they're implementing in here too, I believe, just in general management and requirements there that are part of this that I think would be helpful for us. So we should look into this.
When we did our first, I don't even remember how many years ago, kind of dig into this at the Planning Commission and talked about, do we want to make any changes to our ordinances that would affect where this is allowed and not allowed? That's some of the things that we looked at. Well, if we were going to regulate it, what would we use to regulate it? And there's plenty of examples out there that is kind of a list that's been created of things that governments might require, including contact information for our managers, locally available managers, rules of conduct. Where are you allowed to park? Where are you allowed to be and not be? What are the boundaries? Just, simple things like that to try and make management deal with the issues up front rather than have them create problems for folks. At that point, the Planning Commission and the council didn't want to pass any ordinances to regulate it further. They were comfortable with the idea that we weren't allowing it in residential zones. But it's certainly a conversation we could revisit, and there's plenty of good information out there for you to look at.
Well, that's going to be part of what's going on in the county, right? We might already have something that does that as part of their thing. And these people are going to have to, well, if they pay that fee, then we're, in a sense, contributing into that position by,
Right, the position that the county's talking about adding that would be used to do additional enforcement and regulation of this.
Yeah.
And frankly, $400 is like nothing for how those cash flow.
Yeah.
That's a steal.
Double what it was.
Yeah, if you want to talk percentages versus raw numbers, you're right. It sounds big, but then when you say the actual dollar amount, you're like, that's nothing. Yeah.
And the county's intention is to raise enough money to pay for the program they're intending to provide. That's where that number comes from. I don't think there was any pushback from people that manage these professionally.
No, Tim made that perfectly clear in the meeting. That was like, oh, is that all?
Yeah.
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 someone is still smiling a lot at $400.
For sure. Great.
You're done?
Yeah, I showed up for my EDA meeting because it was the second Tuesday and
Oh, that's right.
doors were locked. Apparently it's next week on Tuesday. So instead of having to remember for 24 hours before I come, I'll have to remember for a solid week.
That's a lot of math. I was gonna hope you did the hours for me.
Yeah, no. No.
And it's my turn. I had a, 3 meetings, I believe. Parks and Trail meeting, I guess we also talked about the VRBO rentals in the county and how many licensed ones there were. I believe at that time it was 358, plus or minus 10%, I guess. I guess they're trying to get them all accounted for. We also talked the potential, a potential trestle connector trail, which would go around Trestle Pine Lake. I know the DNR and the Forest Service is working on that road that already goes all the way around it, and it would connect further north onto the grade there. What else did we talk about? Of course, we already talked about the Snowmobile Club fundraising with the pull tabs and e-tabs. That came before us after the meeting, so we approved that. They're making an application for that. Dog park, there was a little conversation about possibly their parking lot may not be big enough, or it's too far out towards the county right away. They may have to move it in a little bit, which means moving some fence, and it's not a great big deal, but it's something that they'll probably have to look into when they can do it next spring.
They already asked permission, and I said, go ahead and move the fence. I assume you wouldn't be concerned
Okay.
too much about it.
Yeah, they have to move it in a little bit there to give some space between the road and the, yeah, it's on county, the right of way, I guess, get it off the right of way.
I actually think their intention is just to make a little more maneuver room, and I don't believe they're gonna move it off the right of way right now.
Oh, well, make it wider?
Just a little more space.
Yeah, one
Okay.
car parked in the wrong spot can pretty much make
Yeah.
it a 1-car, 2-car parking lot.
Mess up the parking. Okay. That's about everything on that. Then we had a park board meeting. We're finally gonna get our 3 new golf carts because of manufacturing issues, but we'll be getting them in November, so we'll have 3 brand new carts for next summer. Park is open till the 23rd of this month. The water lines are getting blown out at the end of the month. We do still have some people that stay down there and just use the electricity, workers or whatever we have going on up here. I know I had a guy call me about using a piece of my land for the next 2 weeks. He's working up here. But anyway, we'll have electricity anyway for anybody who wants to stay down there. There was a conversation about the rain garden at the bottom of by the Voyager sign. Have you been aware of anything
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah.
Is that mostly just maintenance of it, or who's maintaining it? Or
That
should it
rain-
be maintained?
Well, I think those are all still open questions.
Okay.
That rain garden was the original one that was built there.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't function very well. It doesn't get a lot of water, and since then, 2 other rain gardens have been built. The one across the street,
Gets
which is really
more.
the primary one now, and is
Yeah.
being maintained by a steward, and then the one that's between the library and the Arrowhead building, which is also taking in water. That one that's in front of the signs just doesn't really have a future. While the highway project planning that's going on, that space was looked at as a potential plaza area.
Yeah.
And it wasn't included in the highway project because it's not in there right away, and we didn't want to spend the
We
you
don't,
know.
we don't need to draw people over there. That was an original concept. It's like, no, they go to the lake. Unlike other
Yeah.
communities, we don't need to create a draw for somebody to go to. So I think then that kind of evaporated from those original conversations.
And that, but the idea that we would not have that garden in the future is still, I think, the primary plan, that it'll go
Okay.
away eventually, but it's not gonna go away tomorrow or next year, so if somebody wants to be involved in maintaining it, we're happy to hear about it.
Okay.
Why can't we fill it in now and put grass in it?
We could.
We could.
Yeah, I mean, why can't we just, because it's not worth all the commentary we get about how it looks. Is it?
And more or less match the other side of the
Yeah.
It's
canoe and the boat.
the bigger issue there, which doesn't mean we can't fill it in and put grass, is what's our plan for the whole wall sign complex?
Sure.
And we're working on that too. We're working on getting the one sign that's wooden and the paint didn't last
Repaint it.
replaced, probably. And then we also are thinking about how do we deal with the rock wall and the maintenance of it, and just the access to it, because it's kind of overgrown from, time to time. And so we're trying to develop a plan that includes all those thoughts, and that's probably where we would also then fill that garden in and have it be in its next form. But if you'd rather that happen sooner rather than later, just let me know.
I would. I don't think
Do you
it's.
live on that street?
Huh?
Do you live on that street?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. I'm
Been
like, I
hanging
don't
around
think
there
I've
all the
ever
time.
even noticed that.
It's right under the highway.
Rain garden.
West Grand.
Obviously, I don't spend a lot of time at the
It
library.
just got growing up, it looked kind of shabby, and I think
You can
that's
go to the
why.
library and never see it.
That's why
It's
there's
behind
been
the wall.
comments made.
Right.
There's been plenty. Yeah.
Because the
I
other
mean,
side is maintained pretty nice. but-
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite
Yeah.
lovely, and it functions.
The one in front of Gina's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
I've seen
primary
that one.
Right.
Yeah, that one is really nice.
Yeah.
Well, and so we've obviously had that conversation, so, one of the reasons that paint on that side has probably failed is because of the cedars
Right.
Yeah.
that are putting
It's
their
oil.
It's
oils on top of it.
One side is metal, and that's the one that didn't fail.
Both sides have failed. Neither side is in good shape, if you look. They're both done. I really think it's the cedars and what they're
Well,
putting off on it.
I'm talking about
Whatever.
like on one side of the road.
Well,
Yeah,
right, because
right.
that's the side that has the cedar on it, and both sides of it have gone.
Yeah, that sign's made out of plywood, both sides of it. On the other side of the road, that sign's made out of metal, and the coating lasted.
But it also doesn't have the cedars on it either. It shouldn't be just the wood that did it, I don't think. Anyways,
Yeah. Well, that was
plus
a
there's
discussion.
visibility to it in general. There's a lot of growth that nobody has taken charge of.
Right, well, we're gonna take charge of it, we talked about it.
Yep.
We're gonna prune the cedar trees or make the sign more visible and less obstructed or affected by the trees that are there. We can always plant different trees if we decide to do something in that area, but we do need to take that down and get it worked on, and I think that was one thing we voted on to do, is get that taken care of at our last meeting.
I thought Dave, well, wait a minute.
Get it
Oh,
up.
yeah, the one side's metal, because I thought Dave said he already found someone who'd sandblast it.
Yeah, but we haven't taken the sign down yet,
Right.
right, it's still there.
I live there, I know that.
Yeah. Other things at the park that we talked about was, North House did build a timber frame, 15 by 25 structure that is right down by the marina in front of the boat slips, that the marina users can use, or anybody in that area that wants to go down. Basically, it's gonna be, the discussion was to build it, have the North House build it for us, we buy it, we pay for materials and buy it, and then they wanted to maybe possibly use it as a demo for their classes, so they could remove it and sell it and build us a new one. But at the last meeting we had, we kind of decided, no, we'd rather buy this one, and they can still use it as a demo if somebody wants to come and look at it, because we want to put probably a metal roof on it, and maybe we can do some paving, some pavers or something underneath it, so it becomes more of a, it can always be moved, it's not going to be permanent, but at least it'd be owned by the park, and it would be there and stay there instead of be removed at some point in time, and then we wait for another one to come in. It's just a shelter by the concrete walkway that goes across the marina. There could be a charcoal grill, picnic tables, those kinds of things underneath it, so the structure is there. It turned out really nice. We may put metal on it this fall, or we may just wait until next spring to put a roof on it too. Let's see what else we have here. September was a good Revenue, we beat the 21 totals by $824. So that was pretty, kind of exactly the same as 2021 for September.
Thankfully,
Reservations look
2021
good
was
through
really
MEA, so, and the next thing we talk about at our next meeting will be rates going into, and setting rates for 2023, because the reservation system pretty much kicks into gear November. For, is that July booking?
For May.
May bookings, yeah. So that was everything at the park report, and then I did have a PUC meeting. We're missing
Can they
one.
do 6 months out? Is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah.
Okay, rolling 6 months or something? Got it.
We're missing one member at the PUC meeting, but one thing we did discuss was SIMPA did raise the electric rates to the city by 15% going into 2023, and we discussed probably a modest raise of 3%. We do have some payments that we're going to get off of our books going into 2023. So 2024, we will be sitting better financially to absorb that 15% rate, which we would, if we increase 3%, we'd still be absorbing the 12%. The 15% has already been put in. Is it in effect yet by SIMPA? They're not
It'll
doing
take
that?
effect in November. I believe.
November, they'll take effect? Okay. We did not come to a conclusion on what we're going to do yet, because we want to talk to make sure all three members are present so we can make a decision on how we're going to do that, or what we're going to do on that.
How many more boards, how many chairs are open on PUC?
None.
3 is all it is?
You just said we had one person that was.
Oh, wasn't
We had one person absent,
Okay.
because it's a rate type of thing. We decided to wait till next meeting to make sure
That makes sense.
all of us are there to be part of the decision. Other than that, I think that was everything. What else did we talk about? That was it.
That was everything.
That was just one big item, yeah. One item. We also talked about demand charge rates, but we haven't implemented that.
No, just a little
It's a concept,
primer.
yeah.
Did you get any takers on that yet? The program? The program for the,
The EV charging program? We did, yeah.
EV, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we talk about demand billing, we're talking
Oh,
about
yeah, okay.
a different issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
gotcha.
different issue. Big users. That's about it, I guess. That's everything I have for the 3 meetings I went to.
Great.
What you got, Mike?
Yeah. Shane and I will be attending SIMPA's annual meeting tomorrow and Friday in Bloomington. It's a good opportunity for us to stay connected to the folks that are a part of that organization. They usually put on a program on Thursday where they've got industry experts that give presentations. And then Friday will be their annual business meeting. We'll be voting for new board members. And just a quick reminder, SIMPA is us. It's 18 cities that make up a joint action agency. We're one of the cities. The board is made up of representatives of cities. The decisions are made by the board. So yes, SIMPA implemented a 15% rate increase, but it's because the 18 cities decided that was the right thing to do. So this is a good opportunity for us, like I said, particularly Shane, who as our alternate rep during the past 2 years, has not had a lot of opportunities to actually meet folks in person. So it would be nice for him to do that.
Awesome.
And then next month, the Utilities Commission will talk about water and sewer rates.
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
Got any updates about, like, what happened with the alley paving
Oh.
thing? Like,
I had somebody reach out to me, I'm not sure, is everybody aware, every landowner?
Every landowner's been notified. I haven't spoken to them personally. I can't
No,
say
but they've been
what- for sure
notified, they
what-
know what their fee is going to be, or what's going on?
Yes.
Okay, I
Okay,
had one that
but-
may be questioning it, so I haven't met with him yet, but I promised to meet with him, so I'm gonna do that.
Okay, we're,
Find out
we're,
what the deal is.
So we started the project on Tuesday and ended the project on Tuesday without completing it. So there was some concern by the contractors of some of the utilities, and there's a lot of buried wires in that
There's a lot of
alley.
stuff buried in there.
That they weren't confident of the depths, and the amount of time it would have taken us for them to get confident about the depths may have pushed us past the ability to pave this winter. We didn't want to dig any more without having a little wiggle room in terms of schedule. So we're going to pick it up again in the spring. That's the update you're looking for. Yes, thanks for asking about that.
I
And
did
what
drive
about
through there
the-
and see all the locates. That was really something.
Yeah, it's a lot of pain.
Yeah, it was a lot of pain.
And then what about their ability to meet the architect's, drawings or concepts?
Yeah.
That was their concern, is how far can they dig?
Yeah, that they'll be paving an inverted crown V shape that drains the water in 3 different directions when they do it.
So they will be able to do that.
Yeah.
What are we on for dog pound? Is that like, are we supposed to be doing something? Is it just sitting here because no one's taking action? What are our next
I
steps
actually
for this?
believe that it will be on your next agenda, but I'm not sure what about yet, so
Yeah.
hold that thought.
Who's bringing it then? Obviously you aren't.
No, it's the animal advocates group is asking to come talk to us. So I think that the biggest pause came when they got numbers from a contractor and the budget wasn't close. And I haven't had a good conversation with any of them since. The group that was involved in that was the sheriff and the county administrator and myself working with the animal advocates, and we have not talked about it for a few months now.
Yeah.
So it'll be a good chance to get an update and see where they're at.
Is that part of what we can talk about on Thursday? Is this Thursday not the Thursday for the joint powers meeting?
It is.
Thank you.
Oh, you sure could.
They'll all be in the room,
Yeah.
unless they already want to just wait, but. Just want to make sure there's not something we should be doing to make sure this gets moving, because it really needs to get moving. It's been way too long to put up a dog pound.
Well, I think part of the conversation was, as it started out, was the use, how much use that it had received in the past. I mean, I'm not saying we don't need one, I'm just saying there is a need for one. But I think what kind of put it back on the back burner was funding, where it was gonna come from. I know we talked to Pat quite a bit, he was in here talking about it, I think the county is going to help.
Both the county and you have made a commitment
Right.
to produce some funding for it.
Right.
It's not nearly enough to do the
Correct.
project that they had planned.
Right. So let's wait and see what they've got planned, I guess.
So it's really the animal advocates, I'm not going to say their name right
I think
again.
that's right.
I think you got it.
Yeah.
And they're really the ones that are supposed to be spearheading this?
They're the
Well-
ones
Solely
that
on the-
currently are with some help from us. I mean, you could decide. You're supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, we have a obligation based on how our ordinances are written, right, to provide the space?
No, not at all.
The county, I think, does.
No, maybe it's the county.
The
then.
county does.
I mean, the ordinance doesn't dictate the space, so it's really a question for you, what service level are you willing to pay for?
But are we not the ones creating the need for the space? Because without the city ordinance that says you need to go after dogs that are loose, or pets in general,
Right.
we wouldn't really, other than a nice, humane, kind, caring, we as a city wouldn't have a,
Because in the county, there is no
right.
pickup.
Right, yeah, but there is an agreement between the sheriff's office and the city for them to provide law enforcement services, which includes enforcing that ordinance.
Well, that was,
That's the only-
that's my
that's-
point.
yeah.
I mean, so like, yeah, obviously, we're doing it right now and putting them in a jail cell or whatever they're doing, right? But that's not, I mean, it's our ordinance is what,
Right.
of saying that they need to pick up dogs. That's what's pushing this, aside from the fact that maybe it's the right thing to do. That's what my point was. So yeah, it is the way our ordinance is written, that because of, we contract with law enforcement, and one of our ordinances is that they need to pick up stray dogs, or cats, or whatever.
Unleashed.
That the next step from that would be that they should have a place to be able to bring them to when they pick those animals up, based on our ordinance as written. Right?
Yeah, I'd say common
No?
sense
No, I mean,
wise.
we don't tell the sheriff's office how to do any of the functions that they contract with us. If we feel an obligation to provide that service, we're certainly capable of funding it. And I think you'll get a good chance to talk about that at your next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, that's just sort of common sense, though. I mean, that's like those unfunded mandates for schools.
Right.
Great. How are we going to pay for this?
Right.
So we should follow through with that and not make it all of their work.
Yeah.
Seems common sense.
Anything else?
That's it. That's not right.
That's it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.